Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 38th Platform and Treasury Council meeting. Today, we'll cover governance initiatives, platform developments, and upcoming proposals. I posted the agenda in the chat. These bi-weekly meetings keep the community informed, give proposers direct access to the council, and maintain transparent communication across our global ecosystem. What we're building. We're creating the Internet of Money. 7 billion mobile users can send data instantly, but still cannot truly own or move money. The Telcoin Association is changing that by building the Telcoin network and TEL as the blockchain standard for global telecommunications. Telecom operators already run the internet. With Telcoin network, they'll also secure the blockchain, bringing accessible digital finance to every mobile subscriber worldwide. The platform architecture is 3 integrated layers: Telcoin network, an EVM-compatible Layer 1 blockchain validated exclusively by the GSMA mobile network operators, creating a new revenue stream for telecoms. TELX, a liquidity layer for user-owned self-custodial exchanges. TAN, mobile apps that connect users to blockchain services and each other. There are 4 minor groups with 1 shared governance: validators, GSMA MNOs, liquidity miners, developers, and stakers. All participate equally. Each group earns fees and TEL rewards for their contributions. This alignment turns participants into owners and defenders of the network. TEL, token, and governance. TEL is the gas token, staking asset, and governance token. The Telcoin Association is a Swiss verum governed by 5 elected councils. Our Platform and Treasury Council oversees sustainable platform development and responsible token economics. Why it matters. Every decision we make brings us closer to uniting telecom operators and billions of users around shared blockchain infrastructure, where money moves as easily as data on any mobile phone. As your elected representatives, we're committed to careful proposal review, transparency, and faithful execution of the governance framework. With that, let's move on with today's agenda. Quick recap from our 40th Platform and Treasury Council meeting. We received updates on the Telcoin network from Grant, covering the latest technical progress and validator onboarding. Hayden shared recent snapshots that have passed. These updates continue to show strong momentum across the ecosystem. Grant will provide the latest Telcoin network update, including progress across development protocol readiness, security, testnet activity, and the broader path towards Mainnet. Grant, please tell us about the Telcoin network updates.
Thanks, Angelica. We've got some significant updates to production hardening and security patches these past 2 weeks. We have completed our BLS precompile overhaul. It's a major security hurdle for new validators to securely stake and actively participate in the protocol. We're planning to update testnet next week, which will allow us to then start staking new validators soon after that. We've also launched a new feature for non-validator nodes called XX. It stands for Execution Extensions. This is a really powerful step towards unlocking dApp development. It supports dApp developers to have direct access to blockchain data within the actual node process itself. So it's a really useful feature for like block explorers, bridging, etc., and a whole other wealth of very fast, high-performing dApp development. If anyone out there is interested in partnering up or has questions or wants to know more about integrating, we have an example in the repo, Telcoin Network repo. And then, of course, you can always email devs@telcoin.org. We'd love to hear from you and how you want to use that feature and help support that. We are moving forward with security assessments starting next week for the smart contracts in scope for the protocol. And really, as a final kind of update for the protocol, where we're headed at now and sort of these last remaining weeks and essentially until we kick off more security. Our biggest focus, the 4 key areas that we're focused on outside of just security and production hardening in general, is going to be base fee adjustments around the epoch boundary. We want to address some of the startup flow for nodes and basically consolidate that logic between distinguishing between an observer and a validator, and to just basically a single discovery strategy for all nodes that will basically designed to reduce the burden on validators, so they can keep doing the most important job, which is validating transactions. Third initiative is to keeping nodes synced at the tip. We have made significant improvements on storage size, order of magnitude reduction from epic pack files, but we have some room to improve when nodes keeping synced up at the tip. We're making that's going really well though. With our new teammate, Oni, he is really just up to speed, didn't miss a beat, and he's really made a tremendous impact here at the last stretch. The fourth big initiative is that we'll be just continuing to add and build support for off-chain use cases, right? For users to easily find RPCs, for other sort of networking mapping and useful tooling that will just make the project more complete. My final update, I'd like to address some of the ecosystem development that's been going on. We've met with, these past 2 weeks, we met with some MNO integration teams. We've received a lot of really powerful insight and excellent feedback that I believe will help us to onboard dozens of MNO nodes. We've also advanced some pretty serious discussions with infrastructure partners and big RPC providers. And we're also exploring a demo opportunity to integrate a real-world use case with telcos and Telcoin network later this year. So as of this morning, I think I saw there's 15 nodes connected to one of our validator nodes. So, you know, the network is growing. The testnet is looking really healthy and happy. So all in all, you know, these are sort of the outstanding hurdles for Mainnet are really just getting it to that as close to 100% as possible. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'm happy to address those at the end of the call. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Grant, for giving us the Telcoin network update. Anybody on the council would like to make any comments? Next up then is the Web Unification Project. Blue Lights, you're up.
Thanks, Angelica. Yeah, all good on this front. So we completed the second phase, which was the UI UX design phase. We had a meeting earlier today to kick off the building phase of this now. So we're now in phase 3 of 3, which is the, you know, all the hard stuff's been done, and now we are going into the building phase. So kicked off today, going to start next week, and the ball's going to get rolling. So super excited with that. For anyone that hasn't actually seen, let's have a little look here. Yeah, let me just share my screen. Tell me when you can see it. You can see it okay? Okay, so yeah, this, I'll just give you a sort of highlight of the final designs. Content is done as well. So it's going to be a full-blown back-end CMS, custom CMS. So we can obviously edit and add pages and change stuff. But this is the starting point we're building with. This is going to be the home page. Obviously, it's also mobile-friendly. So, you know, we'll support all screen sizes. So, and it's all being custom built from scratch. So it's not any sort of templated stuff. This is all custom. Everything's custom. But this is a home page. We'll scroll down. We've got obviously kind of like a nice graphic about trying to explain the different levels to the ecosystem. Straight away, you know, you can choose your journey. So if you're a mobile network operator, off you go that direction. If you're a developer, go off in that direction. So we're trying to guide the users, no matter where you're from, to the relevant kind of information you want. We will also have a global search up here, which will be very in depth. So if you think of anything related with Telcoin Association governance wise, anything like that, or M&O developer wise, you can just start typing in there, and it will give you rich search results as well. So you've got these main sections. You've got the mobile network operators, developers, tel holders, liquidity providers and stakers, business and infrastructure providers, new users that might want to learn about Telcoin. Then you've got more about the token itself, things, examples of start building. Yeah, that goes up to developer stuff. So yeah, this is just the main sort of homepage, giving you just more information, learn and explore as well, to trying to kind of take users down a rabbit hole with not giving them too much information straight away. But the deeper they dive, then the more they can learn. So that's the main homepage. I'll just show you sort of two or three more pages. So the M&O, all the menu items are really nice as well. They drop down like this. This is just a clickable prototype, so it's not obviously the fully developed one yet. But the M&O overview page, this is for M&Os. So we can use this page as a resource. For example, if we're doing LinkedIn stuff or whatnot, we can link directly back to this type of page. It will give full information about what it is for the M&Os and how they can earn from the network. What the opportunity is at scale, how to run validator nodes. We'll then also be able to start a conversation with any that might be unfamiliar, because there's many M&Os around the globe. Straight away you can get in touch and request a conversation. So yeah, all of that there for the M&Os. And then we have the developer landing, lots of developer stuff we're working on, but the main overview page will be really straightforward, nice and clean. You've got two paths as an application developer. You can either go down the sort of premier tier if you want, where you're a GSMA member, and these are the advantages here of what you get. But then also the open source path. If anybody wants to start building first, get their app out, use the network, that's absolutely fine. Maybe later on you can upgrade yourself to a GSMA member and get the full benefits of the network. Again, start building in 3 steps: build and deploy, connect your network, more stuff to links to more detailed documentation, the full documentation if you want to go in as a developer and read all the information about it. Also improvement proposals, and again, if you want to become if you want to sign up, if you are a GSMA member, and also the initiative that the TAN Council have, I think it's the first 10 from memory, but there is like a kind of a grant to cover your first year of the GSMA membership. So there's always, if you're serious, if you're building some cool products or fintech apps or whatnot, we've got support there for that. And then yes, we've also got the Telex, because obviously Telex also deserves to be rightly so in line with this unified web, unified web. So the Telex is still going to keep all of the backend functionality we've already got. It's just the front end of Telex that's going to be upgraded in line with this unified web project. Again, more information about how Telex works, things like that. So I can't show you the pools page because that one's not in a clickable prototype, but it's very cool. The other pages where you look at the individual pools and stuff is really nice and detailed as well. And then we're over to like the governance. So as you know, the whole point about this project is to bring everything together in a nice, easy to understand kind of way. Whereas before you'd have to go over to the telcoin.org website to read about the governance and things like that. Whereas here, you'll be straight into the governance, and we break it down nice and easy, bit by bit, so it's not overwhelming, but we still have obviously all of the original, really well-written documentation for the association and the governance structure of it, which you'll click through and be able to read in more detail as you go through this first landing page for the association. And obviously we'll have links to the latest TIPs, TELIPs, TELX IPs, TAN IPs, etc. will come up here, and then you can reach the forum to read more about it as well. So, overall, those are the kind of main pages to show. You've got some other stuff, but there's a lot more sub pages that are going to also be, FAQs and things like that. So those are just the four main sections plus the home page. So yeah, that's where we are. Excited to get the ball rolling this week, or starting today, really, the building phase. So yeah, we'll keep you updated. It can be up to 12 weeks for the full build, but hopefully it won't need as long as that. But we'll keep everybody updated as we go and get to the end of phase 3, and then it will be live for everyone to go and enjoy and read it themselves. There you go. That's that. Any questions? No problem.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, just saying, anyone's got any questions, just let us know.
Thank you very much, Nick. It looks very elegant, user-friendly. Now I give the council the floor. Next is the TELIP Telcoin token upgrade. Grant?
All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Before I get into the proposal, there's an important piece of context I just want to start off with that explains why the proposal exists at all. Telcoin network mainnet is approaching. The MNO validator nodes are being prepared, the protocol is maturing, and the launch that this entire ecosystem has been building toward is now very near. Everything I'm presenting today just flows from that fact. So earlier this week, I posted the TELIP for the TEL token upgrade to the forum. And today I'd like to do 3 things. First, I'd like to walk through what the upgrade is and why I think it should happen now. Second, I'd like to be very plain about the upgrade window and the recovery schedule, because I think that's where a lot of questions are. And third, I'd like to respond directly to feedback that the community has posted this week. It's been really high quality, and some of the top comments I've seen in the forum so far. So starting with the problem, the current TEL token uses 2 decimal places. And that was a design choice that was made 8 years ago, before the current team and before EVM ecosystem had really settled hard on 18 decimals as a true standard. And so for most of TEL's life, that detail has been an inconvenience. The moment Telcoin network launches, it becomes a really hard blocker. First of all, there's gas consideration. TEL is the native gas token on Telcoin network, and gas has to be priced in tiny fractions of that token. So with 2 decimals, the smallest unit of TEL that exists is 1 cent of a TEL. And that is millions of times too coarse to really meter a transaction fee on any layer 1. And especially as TEL appreciates, that problem gets significantly worse because the smallest possible fee rises with that price. And really a 2 decimal TEL cannot do the job that the network needs it to do. There's no amount of configuration or workaround that really changes this. And so we are using 18 decimals on Telcoin network. Second, that value then becomes destructive on bridging. So going from 2 decimals up to 18 is clean, but coming back is not. So when TEL bridges off of Telcoin network to a chain where it has 2 decimals, everything past that second decimal place is truncated. It's gone. It is permanently removed on every outbound transaction. It's, really it's small amounts each time, but that compounds across millions of transactions, and that also adds up as TEL appreciates. So the token that is silently destroying a sliver of value every time it crosses the bridge boundary is not really a credible medium of exchange. And up to that point, I will note that even the most detailed critique on the forum this week has agreed with both of those points. So it is really just an arithmetic problem. And that's the foundation of the proposal. And thankfully, it's not really in dispute. Because there is a third problem with this 2-decimal, and that is really integration friction. So TEL is listed and supported today, right? We had Kraken listing us in January, it was fantastic. But really, every single TEL integration has cost more than it should. And that, I think that's because the 2-decimal token forces that custom handling everywhere it goes. There's custom deposits and withdrawal pipelines at exchanges. There's non-standard pool configurations on DEXs. Even this protocol team has had to deal with special case logic for handling a 2-decimal TEL integration. That's no different for special case logic and custodians, lending markets. Really, every counterparty that integrates TEL has to pay this sort of tax to do it. And I think a lot of those counterparties over the past 8 years have just looked at that tax and passed on the opportunity to work with TEL. Now, we cannot count listings and integrations that have never happened, but what we can say with certainty is that every future integration, and there is going to be a lot as Telcoin Network launches, all those integrations are going to be cheaper and faster and safer with a standard token using 18 decimal places. I think that custom scaling logic is also a well-documented source of precision bugs across DeFi in general. And every custom integration of TEL with 2 decimals has to have some engineering team write complicated code to handle that. So this is the situation. We are about to launch a global network whose native token, as it exists today, cannot price gas effectively. It loses value every time it bridges out, and it taxes every partner that touches it. Really, launching on that foundation would just embed those problems into the genesis of Telcoin Network and to every downstream system. And I think fixing it later would just be even more disruptive than fixing it now. And that is the instability that this proposal aims to resolve. So, the solution, I think, is really it's a clean upgrade to the TEL token to be standards compliant, 18 decimal contract that we can deploy in coordination with the mainnet launch. But before discussing any of the architecture, actually, I want to address what it means for token holders, because ultimately that's the most important aspect of this upgrade. Okay, user balances will not change. 1 TEL remains 1 TEL. It's a 1-for-1 upgrade. The TEL ticker will not change. It is TEL before, and it will be TEL after. Nothing is removed from users' wallets. We have no control over that. We are not creating transactions for users. This is a user interaction only. And users will be able to upgrade on the chain where they already hold TEL through one official Telcoin association page and a single transaction. Our goal is just users connect the wallet, they sign the transaction, it is done. There's no bridging needed. There's no fee to the association. It's just a normal network gas transaction fee. So yeah, it's not dilution. It's not a redenomination. This is not a new token economy. It's really just the same TEL with 16 more decimal places and a modern contract underneath it. So with that, I think a little bit about the architecture. The upgraded contract deploys at the same address on Ethereum, Polygon, and Base initially, using Create3, which is a deterministic deployment. And that lets every partner everywhere identify TEL using one address on all EVM chains. Each deployment will also carry a burn and mint adapter, which will replace the lock and release bridging model, which creates TEL as a truly native cross-chain token. And Telcoin Network will actually be the canonical source of truth for total supply for the token once it's launched. I think it's also important to note that the token will support EIP. The upgraded TEL token will support EIP 2612 and EIP 3009 and support modern payment flows. On Telcoin Network itself, the full TEL supply will be in Genesis, mapped in Genesis. So TEL will be the native gas token from the first block. That supply conservation is verifiable on chain at all times. I think that's really important. And we have gone out of our way to make sure that there is a lot of different ways for users to verify this. The proposal launch would include 3 independent ways, but the combined total supply across all chains will never exceed the fixed 100 billion token supply cap. On security, I'd like to say that the plan addressed on the forum has 2 engagements with Spearbit, plus 2 additional private assessments with third-party researchers. And the full system is in scope for every one of these audits. This is not just the token contract, the upgrade contracts, the mint and burn adapters, the Genesis configuration, the bridge setup. The mint authority will be tied to a safe that has a 7 of 9 multisig, which is the industry standard for critical infrastructure. So again, I try to mention this on the forum, but I'd like to say it here too, that a compromise of that signer set would be a system-wide risk. But that's exactly why the threshold and the signer vetting and the security assessments are at the center of this design. We know that these are problems, and we own that, and we're going to do everything by the book to make sure that this is not a problem. So what does the platform get in exchange for this upgrade? Well, if you're a holder, just a general token holder, you get a TEL token that every exchange and DEX and lending market and aggregator, bridge and custodian in the EVM world, they can integrate with it as standard tooling out of the box instead of having to do custom engineering and complicated, risky math. Every future listing conversation starts easier than it does today. And soon, for the first time in TEL's history, we will have structural on-chain demand because every transaction on Telcoin network requires TEL for gas. And so that network usage converts directly into demand for TEL. If you're a liquidity provider, we get clean pools on standard templates. The association will bear all costs for redeploying that Telex infrastructure and incentivizing these new pools, and that's something that we were working closely with the Telex Council for and their constituents, and taking all that feedback to heart. If you're a developer, you get a token that behaves exactly the way that every library and Oracle and contract expects on the network, where TAN application fees and the full miner economy are finally operating in the way that they were designed to in the Telcoin network. And if you are a mobile network operator, you get a single token standard with one address across all EVM chains, a bank-grade bridging model, live from Genesis. So when the validators come online, it's against the final infrastructure rather than something that immediately has to change or has to change later, a date, and go through a whole other migration process. So I think really the big thing that this unlocks is timing, right? This is a huge advantage. The constraint that has quietly limited TEL for these past 8 years, I think, comes off at the same moment as the network it was built for switches on, right? These 2 events, upgrading TEL token and launching Telcoin network, reinforce each other. I think doing this later just makes, against the live network with live validators and live liquidity, is arguably greater cost and risk. Doing it now, ripping the Band-Aid off, it means the whole ecosystem absorbs one coordinated transition instead of 2 disruptive ones. I think, that kind of brings me to the next part of the proposal that has definitely generated the most discussion, and rightfully so. Starting about the let's talk about the mechanics exactly as they're proposed for the window and the recovery schedule. And I'll provide some reasoning. So the upgrade window is 24 months total. The first 12 months are the primary window. This would be a full 1-for-1 upgrade available to everyone during that entire time period. At month 12, half of whatever reserve remains unclaimed would then be transferred to the community's TEL Treasury that is operated by the association. The other half remains available for later upgrades on a first-come, first-served basis through month 24. And I think at month 24, that window would close and the remainder would go back to the Treasury. The forum's draft contained an inconsistent number on this. That was my fault. I have since corrected it and appreciate that feedback in the forum posts. But yeah, the intended number and the answer 24 months as proposed, and that should be corrected everywhere in the document now. So I think one question that a lot of people have asked is, why does the recovery mechanism exist at all? And I think that, you know, there's a meaningful share of legacy TEL that is just permanently gone. There are tokens in the burn addresses. There's tokens trapped in dead contracts. There is dust stranded in expired liquidity pools. I think leaving that value locked in an upgrade contract really forever serves nobody. Recovering it would return it to the Treasury for the 4 minor groups to govern. It can be allocated through the TELIP process that's community driven and controlled. And it could go back towards network growth, liquidity, security, I think other platform agendas and incentives. But you know, I do want to be unambiguous about the destination. The recovered TEL does not go to a company. It does not go to holdings. It does not go to any power players or the bank, anyone's balance sheet. It goes to the community treasury, the association. And that'd be under the community's governance. And every allocation out of that treasury happens in a public forum through proposals like this one. Another question that that we've seen is, you know, why encourage like a strong first year rather than kind of the open-ended window that some other tokens have adopted? I think, you know, the reasoning behind that is really because, you know, upgraded TEL is the only TEL that Telcoin network supports. That's the goal. And because every month after that there's 2 versions of TEL circulating is just another month of confusion for holders. It's extra burden for exchanges, for infrastructure partners. I mean, I'm concerned about, you know, an expanded surface for scammers impersonating an upgrade. You know, I think if we define a window with heavy sustained communication, that's how we get the ecosystem into one token quickly, safely, efficiently. But I will come back to this though, because I, you know, definitely want to, I think it deserves direct answers and the council's attention, because the migration window is definitely something that we've received a lot of feedback on. But, you know, on that point, the feedback. And so in 4 days, you know, the thread has produced a lot of rigorous community review, and, you know, probably some of the highest that any Telcoin proposal has received to date. So, you know, specifically, I thank Evan Bryant 7, Thad Collins, you know, Liberty Lad, Mr. Braun, Crypto Stevo, TelHub. There's a lot of awesome input, and thank you to everyone who engaged, and particularly Evan, who's had some long posts, but that's exactly what the governance forum is for. So love seeing that. I have responded to the first round in a thread, but I think, you know, let's talk about where things stand on these major themes so far. So on the timeline inconsistency, that was flagged. That is my mistake. It is corrected. The proposed window is 24 months, and I believe it is consistent now throughout the document. For audits and scope, the 2023 incident happened in the application. That definitely happened because of a vulnerable contract that's outside of an audit scope. The community is absolutely right that full scope is a promise until that scope itself is actually published. And that commitment is verifiable. It's not trust, right? The scope statements and the audit reports for the TEL v3 upgrade will be published so the community can read exactly what contracts were reviewed and what findings were addressed and what was patched, how it was patched, etc. We've actually open sourced the repo just before this call as well. I can share that link. And yeah, we invite everybody to take a look, see what's in that code. And you know, this is what we're planning to move forward with security assessments with the passing of the proposal. There's also a note on mint authority. So, the questions around like the hard supply caps and minting against proven lock, there's rate limits. These are all, I think, thoughtful questions. And the design intent is that these protections live transparently in the contract code where anyone can verify them on chain instead of just a written policy where it has to be trusted word of mouth. So the specific on-chain enforcement mechanisms are actually in the repo. And yeah, I'll add that link to the forum. Actually, I think that's probably the best place to share that after this call. So let's see. Another thing I'd like to address is basically the recovery schedule. So the exchange conversion terms. There was a lot of other ideas that were raised, including like separating the votes, conversion fee rebates, and burn components, tying that clock to mainnet, etc. So I think what I've seen so far, I think that these are serious, constructive proposals that are absolutely worth considering. I'm not going to give an answer today and like what that could be reversed next week, but I will commit to writing out full responses on the forum to address each of these ideas before the proposal advances to the council vote. And I will be doing that soon. The on cost and financial transparency, Thad had a question. I think that request is fair. The transition of this scope should absolutely come with a cost estimate. So I will work to have one prepared, and we'll have that accompany the proposal through the council process. That funding proposal will also be brought to the relevant councils once we have those estimates really finalized. On taxes and locked positions, I think, again, those are excellent questions that are worth evaluating. I cannot give the tax advice. I'm not going to pretend to, but mechanically, stakers will have to unstake, upgrade, and then restake. Liquidity providers will have to exit and re-enter pools. And holders should consult their own advisors on what those particular on-chain actions, how that might affect them in their respective jurisdictions. The upgrade path for TEL locking, the upgrade paths for TEL, they're locked in staking, investing in the collateral positions. We're going to have to document those explicitly as part of the coordination plan as well. So, I think there's a lot of infrastructure change that's going on, but the pattern that I want you to take away is that the proposal is getting stronger this week because of the community's engagement, and it'll keep getting stronger the same way. So I love seeing the association working like that, and I do welcome all the feedback. Please share your thoughts on the forum. That's a great place to get have your voice heard. I think, yeah, just to wrap it up, as far as this proposal goes, I appreciate everyone's consideration on the topic. Looking forward for the governance process, just outlining the steps. This would be the TELIP as a primary proposal. It would be decided first through Platform Council's approval, and then the Treasury Council's approval, and then the period of Compliance Council's veto. Its approval is what authorizes the upgrade for this TELIP. But downstream of that, there's also a Telcoin governance improvement proposal, a TGIP, which would be voted on by the full minor assembly, and that would be necessary to amend the Constitution and record the upgraded TEL contract in the Constitution, which would give every TEL holder a direct voice in affirming that canonical token. And there's also potentially like a CCIP, which would establish the Compliance Council's administration of that window. So, yeah, just kind of the next steps as far as if and when this goes to snapshot vote. My last thought I wanted to share, though, is that TEL, as it exists today, it was built for the network that did not exist yet. And 8 years later, here we are. That network is finally becoming reality. We have mobile network operators preparing the validator nodes. We're talking about launching the first telecom blockchain. So this upgrade is TEL taking a native form, I think, and it's the token that is going to be used for gas on Telcoin network. It secures the bridges. It powers the on-chain economy. It's and really the entire platform. So yeah, I guess I'm asking for any questions today from the community that's here, from the councils that are on the call, and yeah, welcome your continued scrutiny on the forum, and ultimately looking forward to see how we can get the council's approval to proceed. So, appreciate everyone. Yeah, let's open it up for questions.
I posted a summary in the chat, Grant, but I can read them off if you would prefer that way, and just skip the ones that you've already answered.
That would be great.
Okay, I think we answered that yes, will max supply remain exactly 100 billion TEL after migration with only canonical, I can't even say the word today, TEL token post upgrade. I think the answer to that is yes, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Will you publish full Spearbit audit reports and scope statements listing the contracts that were reviewed?
Yes, absolutely. I think that, and the repo is public now as well. It's tel-v3 under the Telcoin Association organization on GitHub, but I'll make sure that that link is posted somewhere after this call on the forum.
Okay. Will exchanges support automatic free conversion like polygons, or will holders have to pay fees?
See, yes. I think there was some confusion on this on one of my responses on the forum. So at this time, we do not anticipate the exchanges charging fees to the individual user for upgrading their token. The exchanges there would be a fee for the association to pay to have the upgraded token listed with the exchange. But the exchanges themselves, as they have historically, will migrate tokens for users however they normally do that. I can't speak for them that they won't charge a fee, but I think that that would be unprecedented and unusual. So at this time, from the exchanges that we have heard, that we've contacted and discussed to understand what the process would be like, before this proposal went public, none of them mentioned that users would have to pay fees. It would be the association paying a fee basically to have the TEL3 upgrade supported within their infrastructure. So could I see the questions now, Derek? So I'm going to, so
yeah, cool. I was at under conversion and migration. I was on to number 4.
Alrighty, so number 4, if conversion rates fall below expectations due to friction or fees, what is the contingency? Conversion rates fall below expectations due to friction or fees, what's the contingency? I guess, so if the conversion rates on chain are 1-to-1. So, and there's no way to not do that. I guess, again, I cannot speak for every single centralized exchange, but from all of the infrastructure that we control on the association side, it is a clean 1-to-1 upgrade from old TEL to the new TEL, and that is only cost gas. So number 5 here. So which of these 3 exists in code? A hard supply cap preventing over 100 billion, mint only against proven burn, and per period rate limits on minting. Okay, so I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but so for each contract, so for each upgrade opportunity, we'll deploy these upgrade contracts on all of the chains that we will support. And these are the 3 chains that TEL exists today: Polygon, Ethereum mainnet, and Base. So users won't have to bridge in order to access these contracts. They can upgrade on their native chains, paying the native token gas on those chains. Each one of those contracts receives a transfer of the old TEL and mints an equivalent supply back to the sender. This is done in a complete total amount. There is no partial upgrade through the mint portal that Telcoin Association will host. As far as the hard supply cap, those are capped at 100 billion on each chain. The goal of that is to allow maximum flexibility for users. So, right now we have a majority, there's a lot of TEL on Ethereum, there's a lot of TEL on Polygon. Those numbers, because of the native bridge, can fluctuate daily. And so each contract has the capacity to mint the total amount of supply, but it can only mint when it receives the original token. So I mint only against proven burn. It would be, the upgrade would mint only against a transfer. As far as these existing in code, again, I'm not really sure. They so for if we're talking about bridging, for instance, that would be meant only against proven burn. That strategy is implemented, and there are hard supply caps. So I'm happy to explain.
Yeah, I think that's, you got it, Grant. I think they're trying to ask about the mechanism and how the hard supply cap is kept in play. I think that's really what it is.
Nice. Okay, yeah. And then on Telcoin Network, eventually, so then that'll be the ultimate source of truth for this native token, and that will use a native adapter for integrating with layer 0, and that essentially will be a lock mechanism. So any of the TEL that's not on Telcoin Network will be locked into this contract. So the 100 billion supply will also, that'll be the true source of truth moving forward. Until then, until Telcoin Network is launched, users would have to query the total supply on all 3 chains. But once Telcoin Network is launched soon after, this will be the direct source of truth for the 100 billion hard cap supply. Moving on to the next question here. Does the team hold validator nodes? How many? And will staked TEL amounts by validators display on TELScan? We are so the team does not hold validator nodes. I guess there is a path where that could happen, but the plan is that Telcoin Network is exclusively validated by GSMA mobile network operators, and that's design is to take advantage of their data centers and their full enterprise level hardware and scaling solutions. The staked TEL amounts by validators, we plan to have that displayed on TELScan. We've also, Nick has got some working on some really impressive dashboards for node operators who want to display that information. The information is also publicly available on the consensus registry contract. Although it's just a public BLS key, it's not necessarily tied to a validator name. But that's one of the things that, that's a big focus for the protocol team right now, is sort of like, in parallel to all the other responsibilities, having some of this infrastructure lined up so that, off-chain, such like public dashboards, so that we can see activity on the network in human readable form. I think that's really important for the project to go into full production mode. And so we are working on supporting that at the protocol layer. One of the solutions we have specifically working on is allowing node operators to configure an advertising name, basically like a human readable name associated with their public key, so that off-chain monitoring or maybe like a dashboard could map that value with the public key. And yes, it would be a much more displayed. Yeah, basically we could display validator information on the dashboards. So I think it's a great idea, and it's definitely something that is kind of the more it's going to be really fun to kind of build out and stuff. Moving on though, the next question here. So why route unclaimed tokens to a treasury instead of burning them, which would benefit every holder equally and remove the conflict of interest? It's a great idea. I think that is something that is definitely been considered. One of the advantages though of our 100 billion token supply, and one of the design considerations for Telcoin network, is to have the supply be self-sustaining. Okay, and so so the protocol, Telcoin network protocol, actually the gas fees that are collected are burned, and an equivalent amount is minted into the treasury on chain to fund future block rewards. So the ecosystem, and Parker is actually kind of like the huge design factor, and like I think it's a brilliant idea. The idea, though, how do you keep 100 billion tokens supply healthy and circulating, and without losing it? And base fees on Ethereum are burned. Polygon has similar sort of like burn mechanism. All these protocols do that, and then but in order to do that, you are now, I'm not going to get into the weeds of the tokenomics of it, but so why route them is because the ecosystem is designed to be self-sustaining and kind of recycle those tokens as they are used. But if anybody else has some more thoughts that they'd like to share on that too, happy to. I don't have to answer all of these. I feel like I'm talking a lot today.
Yeah, I'm on it. I got it. Hey everybody, how are you? Awesome job, Grant. Wonderful proposal and well executed. So why would we route unclaimed tokens? First off, mic check. How do I sound?
You're good.
Hair looks good. Okay, awesome. So why route unclaimed tokens to a treasury instead of burning them, which would benefit every holder equally and remove the conflict of interest? So I'll kind of look at those as two parts of a question. So why would we route them to a treasury instead of burning them? So burning them from the supply removes that resource from future use for everybody. So, there's perhaps some notion that scarcity is equivalent to the supply that versus, the number of tokens that are out there, but it's really a function of the demand for the amount of tokens that are available. And so, let's think of one example. One example is the contract address for the TEL token, which holds a substantial amount of TEL that is completely irretrievable. That's just stranded. That's not going to be removed ever. It's not actually really possible besides through this mechanism. And so what we're doing is turning assets that can't be used into assets that can be used for future miners. But also it enables a reclamation process for tokens that otherwise wouldn't be available if we were to burn them when someone has, for instance, cryptographic proof that they own those tokens. And I don't mean to switch between examples here. I'm not talking about if you sent your tokens to a contract address. I'm saying if you have your tokens later on, you can cryptographically prove that you had them. And so that means that there's more tokens available for instance, the Compliance Council to route through their processes back to the owner who perhaps could be incapable of obtaining their tokens or using them during the duration of the reclamation schedule. And so, I would just say that I don't agree with the notion that burning on its own creates a scarcity event. I think that using the supply of tokens both to ensure that people's property is given to them in the new token form, but also to ensure in the example of stranded tokens that we can use this supply to perform our two major functions, which are to plan and finance shared endeavors and to allocate the TEL token to bootstrap the supply side of the production process for both the network, for TELX, and for the application layer. But I think it's a great question, but I don't agree that there's a conflict of interest, nor that this notion of burning a stranded token would be beneficial. to folks. I think that maybe later on, when you're looking at things like introducing buyback and burn into every telex protocol on Telcoin network or similar, then now we're talking scarcity. We're talking buyback and burn, destroy from the supply. That's real demand into decreased circulating supply that can be an exciting notion of scarcity, not one that is removing from the resources we have or that we should be giving back to someone who owns it. And then which jurisdictions is your legal review covering achievement law? Excuse me for not pronouncing that right. And can you share the findings? Yeah, sure. I mean, so basically, there's jurisdictions all over the world for property law. We can have Tim share this findings. He, went through this proposal with us together, and found that it held up well across U.S., Western Civ, and generally across Switzerland and the various jurisdictions that we operate in. But yeah, we can absolutely and will share the findings. So let's take note of that.
Yeah, and
yeah, go ahead.
I can just add a little bit too. I think kind of that escheatment law, is kind of like the reclaiming unclaimed property. So, I think it is worth noting that, we're not taking anybody's TEL2, right? We're just saying as a project, TEL3 would be the new recognized asset for the native token on Telcoin network and for the ecosystem moving forward. So, we're not trying to take anyone's property. We are trying in this proposal, it would definitely be, the risk, I think, is for users that do not upgrade to be left behind and essentially, incompatible as like an old software, that you eventually it just doesn't work anymore. So I don't know, maybe another way to look at that. But
thanks, Matt. Yeah, I appreciate it. So real holder costs and transparency. Will you acknowledge stakers face unstake and restake tax events? I don't know about tax events for unstaking and restaking. I'm certainly not a tax expert, but that sounds a little peculiar to me. That LPs must exit and re-enter pools, and legacy/upgraded TEL could diverge in price during transition. Okay, so 3 questions there. Unstaked and restake tax events. I'm not a tax advisor. I don't see how that's necessarily a taxable event, but talk to your tax professional about that. That LPs must exit and re-enter pools. That's always been in the social contract, folks. We've always been going to Telcoin network. There's always been governance surrounding TELX and the ability to enter and re-enter new pools, to deprecate and to add new pools, and to migrate accordingly. That's part of the price of entering a liquidity position. Now, this is a different event, right? We're not just moving pools, but we are moving pools, right? We're moving to new pools as a part of this major upgrade of the TEL token that will enable the network, where we're going to bring this Internet of Money alive and enable on-chain exchange to happen within the epicenter of the Telcoin ecosystem on Telcoin network. So I totally see what you're talking about, but I would just say that that's kind of part of TELX, is the requirement to exit and re-enter pools, and this is a major upgrade for the TEL token. And then legacy upgraded TEL could diverge in price during transition. So that's an interesting question. One block on each of these networks is a pretty it's not exactly a very long time for you to reach full confirmation of the upgrade of the token when you do the conversion from TEL2 to TEL3. So I suppose there is some time between that, but I don't think that it's a lot of time. And what are the cost estimates and financial snapshots for the entities carrying this multi-year initiative? So there should be, there's some cost estimates, I believe, within, correct me if I'm wrong, Grant, relatively long proposal, but within the proposal itself. So yeah, I think perhaps we can bring back some more info on this, but I think we're working towards getting this thing right, and I think audit wise, we've got all of that planned out and financed. Do you have any other thoughts on this, Grant?
So the the cost estimates and financial snapshots of the entities carrying this multi-year initiative. I'm not sure specifically as far as like cost estimates. There's costs associated with supporting the new token on exchanges. There's
Yeah,
costs
great. I think that
associated
was
with the
that was
contracts.
right.
Okay.
That was the question. Sorry to, but yeah, just for clarification purposes, there were a few questions about what's the overall financial cost, and by entities, I'm assuming they meant to the association. If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So there's gas related to deploying the new Telex pools. There's costs with the security assessments. There's costs with giving the token, the upgraded token on the exchanges. So, I think we from some quotes we've heard, it would be maybe like up to like $75,000, maybe potentially like basically a new relisting fee for some of these exchanges. There's also yeah, just the general gas costs, etc. I think for the quotes for the security assessments, we're looking at probably close to well, I don't know. I would guess, probably all said and done, maybe $200,000, maybe a ballpark off the top of my head, given including exchanges and all the infrastructure deployments and everything, and security assessments. So.
Yeah, and we've already reached out and figured out all of those things in advance of bringing this to the council and to the community for a constitutional vote by a TGIP. So to the extent that we should and can share the specific costs related to, for instance, XYZ exchange, I think that's something that we need to take into consideration.
Yes.
But I think it probably makes more sense just to say, here's that bucket, exchange costs, and go there, because we wouldn't want to sort of sabotage the relationship by breaching any confidentiality with an exchange about their policies for this type of thing. Yeah, great question. Mainnet readiness, I think this one should fall to you, Grant, in terms of what remaining work blocks mainnet for mainnet launch by category. So protocol, audits, telecom integration, operational, legal, and ecosystem. What's the timeline for each?
Yes. So, I think all these things are working in parallel right now. So I don't have the exact numbers prepared to share off the right now, and that's going to be worth listening to. So but ultimately, I think we're still think that we are we're moving as fast as we can, and making sure that the security things are in there. I think I'm feeling really good about the validators and launching with that initial cohort for mainnet launch. So I think that's more or less just like in a final legal review process thing. I'm working out some of those details. The code itself is testnet has been running really well, and is very stable. We are continuing to methodically work through just production hardening all aspects of the code. We are starting the security audits rounds, which will be like a 10-day audit for the consensus registry smart contracts, which is the core protocol contracts for validators to stake and earn rewards. That will be a 10-day process, and then we have 5 days for other reviews. After that, we plan to work and put a few other areas of the code. Now, the way that works is we present the code to the auditors. They identify lines of code and complexity, and then they give us a quote back. So I think all in all, we're looking at close to like and some of these can be done in parallel, but I think it's about 8 weeks worth of security audits that we're starting again next week. So all those won't be done exactly in parallel, but ultimately I think that's that's about how much total security audits stuff that we're looking at to get off the floor and to launch mainnet.
Before we move forward, Ty has a comment.
Yeah, hi guys. excuse me. Yeah, really supportive. But I'd like to pick up on that question 9, Parker, if I can maybe help you out there about the price divergence. It wasn't so much, I don't think, directed at the price diversion when you actually upgrade. If I can probably dive a little bit deeper into the mechanics of the liquidity pool, if you have TEL2 against ETH and the price of TEL2 diverges from TEL3, the upgraded version, then the amount of TEL you have in the old TEL pool, because if TEL2 increases against ETH, then you would have less TEL in that pool. So that when you then withdraw and come to convert to new TEL, you're effectively working with less TEL. And I think that was the concern, a dilution of the pool quantities with TEL2. And the mitigation for that is to withdraw your TEL from the pool before there's a price divergence. It's not when you actually upgrade, it's if you hold TEL2 longer in the old pool and the price starts to diverge between the TEL2 price in the marketplace and the TEL3 price in the marketplace.
Got it.
It's
Well, there are a number of ways, I think, to arbitrage that. TEL2 will always be equal 1-to-1 for TEL3. So if you can find some divergence between the TEL price of TEL2 and TEL3, then you should be able to capitalize upon that just using the contract for creating the token and other markets that trade 3 and TEL2. In terms of impermanence, impermanent loss, I think that's just a general risk of providing liquidity that anyone who does that should be incredibly aware of. In terms of TEL2 versus TEL3, given that they're 1-for-1, yeah, I'm not sure that there's much of a divergence between those, at least, that should be.
Yeah, but I think the question was more directed at if you had the TEL2 in a pool and the value of TEL2 appreciated against the value of TEL3 in the marketplace, then that pool, through the mechanics of a liquidity pool, you would actually end up with less TEL. So when you came to do the upgrade, you withdrew from the old TEL2 pool, you've actually got less TEL than you had because you've got more ETH because the price increased. It's how the mechanics of the pool works. And again, it's part of the risk profile that you have to accept if you're providing liquidity into these pools. So it's, and if you're not comfortable with that risk and you're frightened for that price divergence, then you withdraw your TEL from the pool and upgrade as soon as possible before there's a real market adjustments between the price of TEL2 versus the price of TEL3.
Yeah, and I would say it's like, so if that were to happen, for instance, you would have a situation where, and these are permissionless tokens. So if you have the TEL2 and TEL3, I'm not encouraging this necessarily, but it's, they're permissionless systems on DeFi where you can create like-kind pools for, for instance, they would have a TEL2 token and a TEL3 token in that pool. And those should always trade at 1-for-1, and any disadvantage in that way would go against you. So I think you would be able to go and just arbitrage that with the TEL3, TEL2 pool at the impermanent loss aspect. It just kind of depends on the divergence in price on the pool in question. But if there is a major divergence in price across all pools relative TEL2 to TEL3, that's just a major opportunity for anyone who wants to take advantage of it, because they should always be the same price. And there's markets or mechanisms to ensure that you can capitalize on that. So It's a great question. And the one you brought up is an edge case, and we need to be really conscious of edge cases. So did my answer help at all? I appreciate you chiming in on this.
Yeah, but I think you actually misinterpreted what the question really meant, Parker. It wasn't, you know, what happens when I actually do the upgrade. It's the net effect of leaving TEL2 in a legacy pool, and there is then a price divergence between the price of TEL2 and the price of TEL3. At least that's how I interpreted the tone of that question. So I was just trying to help out a little bit there.
Copy that. So yeah, and I'll just move on to the last question as we've gone over and this is the last one we have. So what validator count represents sufficient decentralization? How long will MNOs test before going live, and when will MNOs deliver bank services to users? So Grant, if you could answer the latter two questions in terms of how long and when will they go live. And I guess I can too, but the answer to the first one is it's relatively arbitrary, but 20 MNO validator members of the association producing blocks to me is sufficient decentralization, and represents when the TAO's authority over the network's parameters and upgrades and overall governance transfers from the TAO to the platform and treasury councils. And so that's the number that we've put there for that sufficient decentralization. But it's a means to an end, sufficient decentralization in terms of having secure property rights on a network independent of third parties. And so that's actually a very debatable area, but we have codified it as 20 in our thoughts and plans. And then how long will MNOs test before going live? Grant, will you answer that one?
Yeah, so it depends on the MNO and what they're doing, but that's what testnet is for. So testing has already begun. Testing is also something that will never stop because the protocol will continue to change and upgrade over time. So as far as like how long they will test before going live, they are live and they are testing at the same time. So yeah, I think once we, as the protocol team, is cleared off all the security hurdles, we're confident in production mainnet readiness. That'll be the next big hurdle for them to also go live. But while that's happening with mainnet, testnet will also stay around to continue testing before these changes hit mainnet. And then will MNOs deliver bank services to users? I think as far as I can tell, like absolutely, that's a huge opportunity and one of the big advantages for one of the long-term strategies and one of the biggest value propositions for Telcoin Network and for MNOs in general to take advantage of this modern technology. And that's something that we are happy to help and support and answer any questions, connect MNOs partners with the bank as well, and do everything we can to sort of bring that vision to light. And that's something else that I'm going to stop there. Sorry.
Now I'll just add on to that and say that we are seeing MNOs all over the world that are, in some cases, more amped up to bring stablecoins in their local market as a first mover advantage within our EXYZ standard than they already become validators at the outset. And it's really critical that we bring in the validators and have them work towards that process as application developers. But we run parallel tracks. You're an application developer member and a validator member. If you're a GSMA MNO using a GSM technology, you're absolutely in a position within our rule set to participate in both roles as a full stack operator. And that's the goal really globally, is to have this unified ledger that brings together each local market and currency into one global shared system for money markets and ultimately everything. So yeah, that's a major component of this. And I'm more optimistic than ever on the timelines, especially as we have been able to harness our advisor to really break into the largest MNOs in the world as first name basis. So things are really great right now. Thanks, Grant, for bringing this proposal. You did an awesome job. Everyone's questions were really thoughtful. I'd love to see the engagement on the forum. And I think that's it for now, unless, Eric, there are other questions that we need to answer.
There was one. Hold on.
I see one more.
Go ahead.
Will Mainnet still be launched once the upgrade is live, or will the full window of 24 months need to end? You said it would cause confusion having two different TEL tokens. So just speaking for clarification, absolutely happy to clarify. Telcoin network will be able to launch within that 24-month period. The complication is, when Telcoin network launches, will it be supporting TEL 2 or the upgraded TEL 3? And so if the proposal passes and we are able to upgrade to the true 18 decimal precision, it'll be a seamless cross-chain, truly native token. So that is our goal, and that's what I appreciate everybody giving this careful consideration and taking the time today to hear my proposal and consider it.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, I'm closing out this meeting. Thank you, everyone, for joining our 41st Platform and Treasury Council meeting. Next meetings are July 16th, July 30th, and August 13th. 2026 is the year of Telcoin. Mainnet is coming. MNO validators are setting up and actively testing. The telecom blockchain standard is becoming reality. See you in 2 weeks. 2026, the year of Telcoin, the Internet of Money.